اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين ووفقنا توفيق الصالحين وانفعنا بالقرآن وذكر الحكيم. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا بما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يقربنا منك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. اللهم أعذنا من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا واصلح لنا شأننا كله لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. وبعد. قال الإمام النووي رحمه الله ونفعنا به وبكم. الحديث الخامس عن أم المؤمنين عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. رواه البخاري ومسلم. وفي رواية مسلم من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Hadith number 5 of Imaam an-Nawawi's 40 hadith is related in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, once again, of the strongest category of Sahih. Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha says that she heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad. Anyone who innovates a new matter in our affair that is not from it, then he is rejected. Anyone who brings something new, innovates means to bring something new. Anyone who brings something new into this amr meaning the deen, into Islam, that is not from it, then he is rejected. This relates to other hadith, as you're probably aware of, as the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu bid'atin dalala," and in some riwayat, "Kullu dalalatin finnar," added to that as well. Every bid'ah, every new thing which comes into Islam is a dalala, is a going astray. And every going astray is in the fire, according to some narrations of some riwayah of the hadith as well. So this is to do with new things that creep into Islam. The early period of Islam, the Mubtadi'un, the people of innovation, were considered to be people of the sects that broke away from the mainstream teaching of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So one of the earliest sects to break was the sect of the Khawarij, which was a sect which broke away from the main body of the Muslims during the time of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. So even during the lifetime of Sahaba, the firq began. The Khawarij were a group, from the very word itself. Khawarij is from the Arabic word khuruj, to leave. So why are they called Khawarij? Because they left the main body of Muslims. The main body of Muslims. And they split away from Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Muawiyah, who were at the time having a conflict, and they formed their own sect, their own small sect. And they had their own unique doctrines which were considered by the majority of Muslims with the Sahaba to be deviant and incorrect. So these are what we mean by Mubtadi', people who bring new teachings that are not from the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. And actually Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, one of the obviously most knowledgeable of the younger Sahaba and the nephew of the Prophet ﷺ, he actually said to Sayyidina Ali, send me to them, send me to our brothers to go and discuss with them and debate with them about the issues that they're bringing. And at first Sayyidina Ali didn't want to send him, but Ibn Abbas insisted. He said, no, there are Muslim brothers, we should go and So in the end he let him go, and Ibn Abbas went, and the 3 questions, 3 points they raised, and he answered each point one by one with proofs from the Quran itself. And following that discussion with them, a large number of them, about a third of them I believe they say, came back to the Sahaba, because they were convinced by the argument of Ibn Abbas. Anyway, the aspect of bid'ah, now we must understand any new thing. If it is a new thing in our belief, in our doctrine, in what we believe, then that's considered to be a deviation in our, that becomes a firqa. People form different things. So we stick to the main majority of Muslims, which is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The actual name Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah arose because there was actually no such thing as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Once these other groups started splitting away, like the Khawarij, and then after that we had the Shia, very soon after the Shia as well, who claimed to be, followers of Sayyidina Ali, the group of Sayyidina Ali they claimed to be. Once these sort of groups started splitting off, then the main body of Muslims, the scholars, began to define themselves in distinction to them that we are not these different sects. We are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. You know, the Jama'ah means we stick with the Jama'ah, we stick with the majority. We don't break off from the Jama'ah. That's the actual meaning of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We don't break from the Jama'ah. You know, you see very clearly in the life of Sahaba, the later period when there was unrighteous people were actually put above them. Unrighteous people of the Umayyad, of the early Umayyad dynasty were appointing unrighteous governors, unrighteous emirs to lead the prayers, but some Sahaba were still alive, like the young Sahaba, like Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, Anas ibn Malik, these great Sahaba, the young ones, they were still alive, but they didn't split away. They remained and they prayed in the masjids with the Muslims, even though the unrighteous people were leading them. So the idea was that we are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we don't break. As the Quran says, you know, La tafarraqu, do not break up into firaq, do not break yourself away from the main body of Muslims. So it's very important to understand. This is actually Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's the actual meaning of it. And the Sunni Muslims have always been the majority, the vast majority, even till today. The vast majority of Muslims is people of Jama'ah. We don't break, you know, even if we have differences between ourselves, we keep to the Jama'ah, you know, we don't start breaking away and making our own little groups. That's very important. Even the Prophet ﷺ, even if he was given knowledge who were the munafiqun, if you remember, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to him who are the munafiqun in Medina. But despite having the knowledge of who they were, individual by individual, he refused to turn them away or to fight them. Because what did he say to the Sahaba? He said, I don't want it to be said that Muhammad ﷺ fights his companions. You know, so imagine that, you know, he actually knew who they were, but still he didn't split up the Muslim Ummah. You know, and then we see when we look at the lives of the Sahaba, also a very strong belief in don't break up the Ummah. You know, don't break up the Muslims. So that's the bid'ah in innovation in belief. The innovation in practice is where you know, new practices are brought in to Islam. If any new practice arises, it has to be assessed by the ulama of the time, the people of knowledge, because al-ulama warathatul anbiya. The ulama are the inheritors of the prophets. The prophets don't leave dinars or dirhams, they only leave knowledge. So the knowledge is carried in each generation by ulama. They have to assess, does it fit into Islam or is it not from Islam? So if you look carefully at the hadith here, it doesn't mean that every new thing is always bad. Man ahdatha fi amrina ma laysa minhu. Someone who brings a new thing into this deen which is not from it. Meaning some new things can be from it. If you look at logically, look at the actual statement itself. If it was the case that every new thing can never be accepted, why did Sayyidina Abu Bakr bring the Quran together in one book? Which the Prophet ﷺ never did. Why did Sayyidina Uthman make 2 adhan for Jum'ah, which the Prophet ﷺ never did? Why did one of the later Khalifs put diacritical marks in the Quran, the Fatha, the Kasra, the dots, which the Prophet ﷺ never did? So, if you look carefully at the meaning of the hadith, whoever brings a new thing into this matter, that is not from it. Some new things can be in conformity with the teaching and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's for the ulama to look at and to arrive at a consensus, because once again we go by ijma'. We look at where the consensus of the ulama, because one alim may be right or wrong. We don't say that any one alim is infallible. We don't believe like the Shia believe in the infallible imams or things like that. I already gave the example of Sayyidina Umar when he was given the fatwa about the mahar, and how he was challenged by one woman with an ayah of Quran, and he accepted. If anyone was going to be infallible, it would have been Sayyidina Umar. If we look at the lives of those great Sahaba, when Sayyidina Umar had to make a decision, he didn't say, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get ilham," or I'll get a dream. No, what did he do? He took shura. He took shura with his other great Sahaba, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Uthman, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, the great Sahaba around him. He took shura. Why? Quran says, وَأَمْرُهُمْ shura بَيْنَهُمْ. Their affair, the affair of the Muslims is by shura, by consultation. Anyway, so coming back to the topic here on innovation. Now there's a Sahih hadith in Sahih Muslim, which is very important to give commentary to these other hadiths about bid'ah, which says, "Man sanna fil Islami sunnatan hasanatan, yakun lahu ajruha wa ajru man amila biha. Wa man sanna fil Islami sunnatan sayyi'ah, yakun lahu wizruha." I can't remember the exact term for the sin of it. Yeah. So the meaning of the hadith in Sahih Muslim is, whoever brings a new practice in Islam, a good new practice in Islam, he will have the reward of it and the reward of everyone who does it after him. A good new practice. Sunnatan hasana. Please, if you don't believe me, look in Sahih Muslim. Nowadays you can just Google search, put in Sunnah Hasana, Sahih Muslim, you'll find the hadith. Man sanna fil Islami sunnatan hasanatan. Whoever starts a new good practice in Islam, he will have the reward for it and the reward for everyone who follows him in that new sunnah. وَمَنْ سَنَّ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ سُنَّةً سَيِّئَةً. Whoever brings a bad new practice in Islam, he will have the sin of it and the sin of everyone who follows him in that bad practice. So that hadith is vital because it gives a clear commentary that the new matters, bid'ah, can be of sunnah hasana or sunnah sayyi'ah. This is not coming from me, this is not coming from ulama, this is coming from the Prophet ﷺ. Also look at Sahih al-Bukhari. about the Taraweeh themselves, the Taraweeh that we pray here. What does Sahih al-Bukhari say about Taraweeh? Sayyidina Umar came to the masjid in Medina and he saw the people praying in the night of Ramadan separately. And he said to them, pray together behind the Imam. And then he came back the following day and he saw the people praying behind the Imam in Ramadan. After this is the Taraweeh. And he said, what was the phrase? Ni'matul bid'ah hadhihi. Ni'matul bid'ah hadhihi. This is a good new innovation. This is a good new thing I've just done. Why? Man sanna fil Islam sunnatan hasana. He started a new good practice. It was in conformity with the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. Man ahdatha fi amrina ma laysa minhu. This wasn't laysa minhu, this was minhu. This was a new thing, but it was from the example of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's not for any of us people to decide, it's for the people of knowledge to know what is in conformity within this deen. For example, if someone said, every Friday I want to give sadaqah. Yeah? I want to make it my new sunnah. I want to make it, maybe he hasn't heard this from the Prophet ﷺ. I want to give money to some orphanage or something. Is there anything wrong with that? Sahaba, after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the Sahaba, they put certain days they would teach the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Is there anything wrong with that, to choose one day? No, because they're doing things which are within the teaching of Islam. So this sort of slight extremism we have nowadays of people who don't understand the meaning of bid'ah, people from a certain region of the world who are just, it's a type of brainwashing. Because they will keep repeating one hadith but not the other one. If you keep repeating the hadith, kullu bid'atin dalala wa kullu dalalatin finnar, and you keep repeating that to people again and again and again every day, in every khutbah, in every television program, in every time you speak, but you never repeat the hadith, man sanna fil Islam sunnatan hasana, that is a type of brainwashing. Because how do you brainwash people? By repetitive. Well, that's how they brainwash people. That's how the Nazis and all these people were discovering how to brainwash people. So just by repeating the same thing again and again. That's how you brainwash people. Imagine every day, every khutbah, every radio station, every television station, they kept saying this, the hadith from Sahih Muslim. Man sanna fil Islam sunnatan hasana. Yakun lahu ajruha wa ajru man amila biha. Imagine they kept repeating that every day to you. People will be thinking, what can I start? A new thing. Sayyidina Umar, he started the Taraweeh. It's in Sahih Bukhari, the book that they claim to be the book that they follow. The book that can't be touched. Yeah? Now, a very interesting thing. One of the main students of Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, he was asked about the Taraweeh. He said, how come we do Taraweeh? How come we do this 20 Taraweeh? And he gave a very amazing reply. He said, ما كان عمر مبتدعا. Umar was not an innovator. So those people who want to deny that Taraweeh in that sense, they are saying that Sayyidina Umar made a mistake. Because he clearly came and he said, Ni'matul bid'ah hadhihi. This is a beautiful innovation. This is a beautiful new practice I've started, which is in conformity of the teaching of Islam, in conformity of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Because sometimes the Prophet ﷺ did make jama'ah in nafal in the night. We know that from his Sunnah. It says he started praying Qiyamul Layl and Sahaba would come and join him in jama'ah, and then after a while he stopped because he feared that it would be thought of as wajib. After a while he stopped because he didn't want everyone to think it's wajib, because many people started coming and joining the Prophet ﷺ in the Qiyamul Layl, in jama'ah. So Sayyidina Umar knew that this is within conformity to the Sunnah. So that's the meaning of Innovation. But now, of course, at the same time, we shouldn't be of the other extreme, yeah, where we think anything is acceptable. We have to realize it is a serious matter. The bid'ah is a serious matter. And that's why the ulama, if anything new comes in, they have to look very carefully at this thing. Is it in conformity within this deen, or if it's not, then we have to reject it. Yeah? So we don't go to one extreme or another extreme. We have to understand what's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Any questions?
The innovation cannot be rightly, right away rejected, because there is a time frame, attached to it.
To which, sorry,
So the any innovation. So unless until it is tried and given a sufficient time, to see whether it is acceptable or it is useful, so then and only then it could be incorporated, for example. So I mean, and if we make a right away decision, we can't say that this is right or this is wrong.
Yes, exactly. Yes, very important. It's for the people of knowledge, you see, who've got the deep knowledge of the Sunnah to understand these things.
Yeah, the majority of people in Syria, Iran, Iraq are Shia. Do you disagree with them? Or what's your point on that?
What do you mean by disagree with them?
No, the majority of people there are Shia.
No, in Syria, no.
No? Iran?
Iran, yes.
What do you think about those Shia people?
In what way?
Are they right, wrong? They pray different, they don't do Tarawih, stuff like that.
Well, of course, I'm not Shia. I'm Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, so I do believe they are incorrect in several, in their beliefs, for example, about the Sahaba, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, in their fiqh as well. But also I believe they're Muslims. The vast majority of Shia are Muslims. Our scholars did not say that Shia is out of Islam. Apart from a few minority of them that may have extreme beliefs. For example, if they believe that Jibreel alayhi salam came to the wrong person and should have come to Sayyidina Ali, of course that's kufr. But that's a minority. So when we talk about the general, we talk about the majority of them. We say they are Muslims. But we don't agree with them. They're a deviant sect. But I think it's very important to remember the Prophet ﷺ said, and it's mentioned in the later Hadith in Sahih, Al-Muslim akhul Muslim. Al-Muslim akhul Muslim. The Muslim is a brother of a Muslim. And also remember what Sayyidina Ali said about the Khawarij. Remember the Khawarij I talked about. These Khawarij, they went away and they actually started fighting against Sayyidina Ali and accusing him of all sorts of things. What did Sayyidina Ali say about them? He said, Hum ikhwanuna baghaw alayna. These people are our brothers who have fought against us. They have rebelled against us. Yeah? So it's very important to remember we're Muslims. This is the age of unity. This is not an age for us to fight each other. If we start fighting each other, Sunnis fighting Shia, yeah? Sufis fighting Wahhabis, Deobandis fighting Brelvis. If we start fighting each other, this is all to the benefit of the enemies of Islam. It's of no benefit to Muslims. And the enemies of Islam are putting in their full efforts right now to start a war between Shias and Sunnis. So, if people want to start making, inflammatory statements against Shia, I don't agree with that.
We have a lot of young people who have this, when they come to the deen, bid'ah is one of the main things that they're taught, and it gets to, for some people, to a level of paranoia, where everything can become, I've shook hands with people that say, it's a bid'ah the way you shook my hand. It can happen. But how do we educate people that, because the main argument is that the Sahaba didn't do this, so that's it, end of story. So how do we help people understand that there's not a limit drawn there, at that point in history?
Well, it's very difficult, bro. I mean, the thing is, Imam al-Ghazali talks about different firaq. He says, once you get people that are in a particular group or a particular way of thinking, it's very hard actually to talk to them. Imam al-Ghazali's advice is actually don't bother wasting your time. If people are already... Okay. The question was, for the benefit of sisters, the question was, how do you sort of, people that are very obsessed about these issues about bid'ah, how can you explain to them the Sunni perspective? So Imam al-Ghazali said, don't waste your time. If you find some people, they are very much into a certain group or a certain sect, and they just, they're convinced by those teachings, he said it's almost impossible to talk to such a person. So don't waste your time with that. What we need to do is like what we're trying to do now here, have study circles where we're teaching people what is Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, what is the teaching from our scholars, from traditional ulama, a moderate way of Islam, But at the same time, we're not apologetic or trying to change Islam because we're in the West or we're scared of, the disbelievers. No, we're teaching Islam. If we're not able to teach Islam as it is, then the time has come for us to make hijrah. But alhamdulillah, in this country we have got a freedom to teach Islam, there's no problem. We're not teaching violence or anything like that, we're just teaching Islam. So what we need to do is to teach, some of these young people that come in, like you said, they start practicing. Why do they learn those things in the first place? Because those groups take them away straight away. Those groups are going around looking for people, they're preying on people, They see a young person just start practicing, they'll be coming up to them saying, come to the study circle with us. So they're doing a lot of effort in their deviant beliefs. Whereas we people who are normally Sunnis, we're much more complacent and laid back. We don't really have that type of energy about us, But once someone is in there, they're stuck in there, it's very difficult to talk to them. If you come across someone who sincerely wants to discuss something, and you can detect there's a sincerity, then of course sit down, present to them the proofs that we have, like these hadiths that I've mentioned, etc. That's all we can do really.
An example of bid'ah nowadays around this. Any examples around?
Bid'ah?
Yeah.
Sure. If I give some examples, people might not be happy. Go on, Uncle.
You find that these people who, I would call them bid'ati, they create these things from nowhere. They have probably a dozen or so of these arguments, which they start from, and then they try to convince the people who have very little knowledge or no knowledge, and they are very easy to overpower them as well.
Yes, true.
Is there not a chance that Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah can create like a little booklet just to have, let's say, a dozen of their questions and the answers to that? I have never actually come across anything like that. Would it be possible to do just that? Because that's all they carry. Probably about a dozen or so of these questions. They fire them at people. A lot of people who do not have enough knowledge, they get subdued with these questions, and then they submit. They sort of just give up after that, and they have to follow what they do. So is there something that is being done or can be done?
Very good point. Sorry, I won't be able to repeat that whole question, but this is a good point. This actually I mentioned to some of the brothers. It's very important for masjids, for example, who are Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the committee or the imams. It's very important for our masjids to take this responsibility to have literature available, which explains the Ahl-Sunnah position on these issues. Because there is a lot of literature, very good literature out there. There's a lot of good books about small booklets that you can give out for free about the necessity of following a madhab. Several different scholars, both from the Indo-Pak and from the Arab world, have written. There's been fatwa written by Murabit al-Hajj, the teacher of Shaykh Hamza Yusuf, specifically on the obligatory nature of following one of the four schools of law. These issues of bid'ah, all of these have been addressed in articles. I would recommend Masood Khan's website, probably you might be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, Masood Khan, if you type it into Google, he has a website which has got a lot of very, very good articles. These can be printed out and they can be distributed free, and it's really the responsibility of these type of masjids. Because normally Muslims, they go to the masjid, the normal average Muslim. They're not going to come to my madrasa where I teach in houses. They're going to come to the masjid for their prayers. And they're the people, like you said, these other people come and they give them a few slogans, 5 or 6 points they always bring. I'll give you an example. Sorry, I can see the time is running out. I'll give you an example. One brother came to me and he told me that, he was in the masjid and he looked like a new practicing Muslim. I think he was newly practicing. And one of these guys came up to him and they showed him a hadith from, I think it was Sahih al-Bukhari, in which the Prophet ﷺ raises his hands before going to ruku', etc. The difference we have between Shafi and Hanafi. But the interesting, what the man said to him then, he said, look, who are you going to follow? Are you going to follow Abu Hanifa or are you going to follow the Prophet ﷺ? You see? Now, this is a trick, to trick people, trap people. Because probably that person is not that silly himself. He knows that no one follows Abu Hanifa. But the way they phrase it to people who don't have much knowledge, like you said, it makes the person really confused. Now, which foolish person is going to say, yeah, I follow Abu Hanifa, not the Prophet ﷺ? So the question itself is misleading. Because no one follows Abu Hanifa. Because Abu Hanifa followed the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We believe Abu Hanifa was one of the greatest imams of the Tabi'een. He met some Sahaba, so he's considered Tabi'een generation. He was praying the way that his Shaykh had taught him in Kufa, the city where Sayyidina Ali lived, the city where Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu lived. So the prayer they were praying was according to those great Sahaba. But so this is the tricky way they can try to get people by making these simplistic slogans. Who do you follow, Abu Hanifa or the Prophet ﷺ? Trying to trap people. So, inshallah, it's a good question, and I think it definitely needs to be done. People, we need to have literature that can be given free of charge to people that come to the masjid. Because if you go to Saudi Arabia, they will give you free literature all the time. They're putting plenty of money and plenty of free literature. So this is what I'm saying. As Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, normally we're quite complacent. We're more complacent. I don't think we've got time for more questions.
No, I think we should.
Sorry, brothers. Maybe inshallah tomorrow we'll leave more time for questions.
Okay,
Brother, obviously, brothers have a different opinion. How would you advise people to hold on to their opinion or to give up their opinion on certain matters?
Brother, you know what it is? It's similar to what the other brother said. Some people who are in a particular group or in a particular sect, it's almost impossible for them to come out, It's a type of brainwashing. But if someone has got sincerity and they are able to put down their pride, that's the main thing, The pride is a barrier to truth. We mentioned that before. This was a barrier for Iblis to the truth. Istakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. So pride is always the barrier, We want to just win the argument, we just want to win the debate. If someone has just put sincerity in his heart and humbleness and he can discuss with you, then they can, inshallah, they can be easily guided. Brother, I'm glad you came back. The brother who asked the question about the Shia.
Actually, if you're contradicting yourself, because when you say you disbelieve in Shia, then you say Muslims is Muslim.
Yeah, they're Muslim. I don't agree with their doctrines.
Well, that's where the conflict is.
This is not a time to start conflict between Shia. Shias and Sunnis lived in peace.
Why are you not contradicting yourself?
Shias and Sunnis
Well,
lived
you
peacefully.
Shia, but you say Muslims, they're Muslims are Muslims.
Shia and Sunni lived peacefully for over 1,000 years in Damascus, where I was. The Shias, the Sunnis in Iraq, they lived peacefully. We're Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give tawfiq, inshallah.
Sorry, can I ask for you?
Somebody asked,
I leave in the hands of Brother Ridhwan now, inshallah.
somebody asked Jabulullah Sahib Anderson, his name was here, just forgotten, that are you Shia, or do you understand Shiaism, and you invited a leader of that sect to invade India? The answer was, if I'm not wrong, that do they worship same God? Yes. Do they believe in the same Quran? Yes.
Subhanallah.
Do they harm us in any way?
No. So this is written down in Shaykh Abdul Aziz's book. If people would read our literature, they will find all this.
If Jazakallah khair, and Jazakallah to our respected Shaykh Dr. Ridhwan. Inshallah, if I could request the Hafiz Sahib, Hafiz Ammar, who's travelled a long way, Jazakallah khair, Hafiz.